that difference. I have been thinking recently about where our congregation was a year ago, this last spring. Last spring, I was hearing a lot of fearfulness as we contemplated the retirement of Reverend Brian and as we wondered what was next for our fellowship. There was lots of uncertainty about how we would do without a called minister at our helm. There was apprehension about the changes we were facing. I think some probably wondered if we could continue as a church. I don't know what magic occurred last summer, but when the fall came around, I no longer sensed that fearfulness. In its place, I felt an excitement and an energy in the fellowship. And from my point of view, this has continued. What a year we've been having. Our Sunday services have been varied and meaningful and well attended. We have been blessed to have Reverend Catherine's halftime presence and her wisdom, and to have Reverend Alex gracing our pulpit one Sunday a month. Our committees and social groups have been vibrantly active. We've been caring for and loving each other. We have continued to reach outside of our fellowship to better our world. I would liken us to an oak tree. We are a spiritual community with roots and connections that go deep. Our canopy provides shelter and also nesting possibilities for new beginnings. Our branches reach out to the world around us. The winds of change are coming again, but we are deeply rooted and we will continue to thrive.
Beloveds, happy Beltane. I love this time of year that we recognize at Beltane. It's the time when spring is in its full bloom, and I feel that really resonates with what Megan just shared. The congregation over that summer and through this year, in all honesty, I feel has been in a spring, and you're entering into your full bloom, and it's a beautiful thing. As I was preparing this message, I was accompanied by an orchestra of birds singing in my community and witnessed the buds that had flowered, bloomed, and are just turning into that full leafing of trees. Spring is done arriving, and summer is here. And while there is an actual lag in the temperatures and experiences, we can start to welcome summer today. Beltane is the midway point between spring equinox and summer solstice on the wheel of the year. And today, Beltane's generally celebrated on the 1st of May, or May Day, in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the start of summer, so while that particular tradition emerges from areas around Ireland, Scotland, Isle of Man, thus 1 May, if Beltane is celebrated in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the relationship to the flow of seasons and energy of life that's important. So it would shift to being celebrated on 1 November, which would be the start of summer, because it honors that energy. It's not the date that's really important. And Beltane is a pagan holiday. My favorite definition of paganism was offered by a historian, Pierre Chauvin. People of the place. And I love that. I experienced that phrase in resonance to our Earth Day message to live into deeper connection with the place on the earth that forms us. I called us to love the earth that loved us into being. Well, worshiping it could work too. People of the place honored the people that preserved the local traditions, particularly ritual actions embedded in the culture and how people lived. Paganism is often grounded in deeds, not creeds. Now, I have to also name some of the formal roots of the term paganism, as it's connected with the Roman expansion of Christianity through conquest. Paganism from the classical Latin paganus, meaning rural, rustic, and later civilian, as people could be either in the rural or within the cities, was first used in the 4th century as early Christians for the people that the Roman Empire encountered who were practicing polytheism or ethnic and local traditions other than Judaism and Christianity. In contrast, with Rome, the Romans who were doing that encountering being considered, quote, soldiers for Christ. Once it became the state religion under Constantine, and beloveds, I have to pause here for a moment too. First, that exact motto, soldiers for Christ, was offered to me when I was in military service. And a quick Google search found several sites associated with that motto in both our larger communities. Second, the message of Jesus that I understand is the message of radical love, hospitality, forgiveness, and community, as we often celebrate and aligns with our core values. And third, the time between Jesus and Christianities, with their subsequent spread to Constantine making Christianity the state religion, could all be messages in their own right and talks for another day. But it's important to name these in our discussion of paganism because Merriam-Webster still defines paganism as spiritual beliefs and practices other than those of Judaism, Islam, and especially Christianity, and immediately offers a such as to describe some of the traits. Beloveds, let us pause and think on the different ways to be religious and spiritual other than the Abrahamic traditions. There are so many ways to explore our ongoing dialogue of what really matters in life and our lived experiences, that definition is so broad. It is also a definition of exclusion that privileges and assumes that people using it will know and understand the Abrahamic traditions. It's defining paganism relative to what it is not, rather than what it is. And that's part of why some people consider the term paganism to be associated with the religious conquest that had happened in the early centuries. Others honor that holding the full breadth and manifestation of pagan religion, thought, and belief is a source of power. And any specific definition would miss some ways of meaning making and specific location of the people practicing them. Pagan traditions are highly varied, location specific, and adaptable. And as I was working that up, I really felt some resonance with our big tent. Paganism is described by Michael York as a religious spiritual position found in Chinese folk religion, Shinto, primary tribal religions, Spiritism, and contemporary Western Neo, Greco, and Geo-pagan religions. He offers that paganism is the source and origin of all religion because we first related to what was where we were and the traditions that we were raised in. The pervasiveness and variability, location specificity, and adaptability of pagan traditions and rituals naturally create a generous, organic alternative to institutionalized authority. All right, take a big breath with me, please. That's a lot. And since paganism is everywhere in relational to the earth and nature and location, Michael York offered that it was a root religion. A root religion is the religion from which many others emerge as either an offshoot or in response. And when we reflect on some of the holidays, we can see some of that manifesting, at least from the Christian perspective. The traditions of the manifestations and the symbols associated with Easter, with Yule. We can see those elements, the green that comes inside our homes. We can see those elements that have been either an offshoot or emergence or in response to. But what I most love about that is it flips the Merriam-Webster definition on its head, that paganism isn't a response, it isn't defined in response to the Abrahamic traditions, but it's the root of religious thought, including feeding into the Abrahamic traditions as well. I want to invite us to sit with that too. Paganism is associated with praxis, with the doing, and it's about what you do. Did you tie the ribbon around the tree or not? Tie it in joy or sorrow? There are many, many, many manifestations of the divine to honor, gods, goddesses, and the divine to name, rather than the orthodoxy from the Greek or the root belief or opinion, the orthodoxy of the Abrahamic traditions. You can do all the things, but it's the right belief or faith that's important. Honoring the course that there is more in common among progressive elements of most religious expressions than with than within the belief structure with the more orthodox is really important to me. And I think both of those matter, our orthopraxis and our orthodoxy. Both what we do and how and why we do it is important. And today we celebrate the spring and welcome summer, honoring one of many ways to approach a root religion. Today we celebrate the abundance of the earth and the generosity that gives us what we need to survive. Today we celebrate the wisdom of our ancestors to gather, recognize their connection to the earth, creativity, passion, and love. This community has a strong thread of practicing the divine in nature to engage with reverence with the world around us. When I talk to many members of our community, the natural world is usually a component of their theology and meaning making of what really matters. One of the core social justice actions we've been engaging in this whole year is Your Beautiful Garden, which is hyper-local and celebrating and connecting us into the cycle of energy and flow and feeding the greatest and the least. When we hold room for that wide range of belief and meaning-making structures, we are living into our big tent of Unitarian Universalism, which can include so much, including the pagan approach to life. Returning to the concept of people of the place, Michael York offered that these traditions have common traits including being polytheistic, with gods, goddesses, and the divine, and a diversity of genders represented, a local emphasis, an eminent concept of the divine, meaning God is with us. You can hear eminent Emmanuel, God with us, rather than a transcendent or God is completely other than human and somewhere else. Gods were anthropomorphic. They're fundamentally human with many traits. And nature worship, or nature as a chief expression of the divine, is very prevalent. And so now I'm going to take a short pivot from paganism generally to return to Beltane and the Wheel of the Year. The Wheel of the Year is grounded in recurring astronomical phenomena. The solstices and the equinox are key points, with the summer and the winter solstice opposite each other, and the spring and autumn equinox opposite each other. And then halfway between them is another designated pagan holiday. And the names vary by location from the tradition that you're studying within the European context. As that broad definition offers, there's many, many other ways to approach the synchronicity. And those astronomical features are very, very prevalent. In fact, archaeologist.org offers some of the most beautiful images of 11 ancient sites best known for assessing their solar alignment and phenomena, and they span the whole world. These ancient stone structures were built in the very cities of our ancestors, tell us the solstices were important times. The ancients spent a lot of effort and energy to measure them. Monday and Tuesday, we will be halfway between the spring equinox, in the European context, Ostera or Easter, and the longest day, the summer solstice. Traditionally, Beltane was celebrated with large communal gatherings and bonfires. Often, the herd of animals would pass through the bonfires for purification and fertility as part of a ritual move from the winter pastures to the summer grazing lands. And the blessings of Beltane would come home to the hearth with fires lit from the communal bonfire. Many would pick white and yellow flowers to be used and use a bright ribbon to tie wishes of ribbons to trees. Beltane was also a fertility ritual for humans too. Conceptions associated with Beltane were considered blessed. And that makes just total sense to me because conceiving at Beltane would align the pregnancy with the available food cycle for the seasons and throughout the year. Beloveds, and here's where I'm going to draw on a parallel on how we engage other sacred texts. When I discuss the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, or any other sacred text with you, we approach it archetypically. We put it in context of who created it, who was it created for, why, and what was the surrounding culture. And then we can take that resulting understanding and apply that to our context and consider our why. I encourage us to do the same with Beltane and many of the other pagan traditions, and many modern pagans already have. Some pagans work toward a recreation of the original traditions, while others approach the holiday in a syncretism or merging and blending of different belief systems, ideas, and cultural practices to a new hybrid form. This invites our attention to a yes and space. Many of my colleagues and I hold that there, as I mentioned earlier, there are more diversity within the religious traditions than there are between them. And to bring us into the frame of mind I'm lifting up here, considering the ultra-Orthodox Christians and our UCC partners in OWL, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community and the Reform community who share our space. We have a lot in common with our partners. This process also is how we have UU Christian, UU Jewish, UU Muslim, and CUPS communities. That is the yes part. And avoiding cultural or religious appropriation is also really important. As author Liz Bucher offered, we should be letting diversity change what we understand to be good and right and true in the world. It can really shift our values. It shifts how we understand reality. Just gonna let that sink for a second. That's the beauty of interacting with cultures, is we see what we couldn't see before. We only get to see the world through our own lens and view. And cross-cultural engagement allows us to see the world in beautiful ways that may never have occurred to us, was not part of our understanding of reality. And misappropriation harms the community that created the culture or religion. And so, beloveds, as with any cultural change or cross-cultural engagement, working within the maxim of nothing about us without us is a great start. One of the organizers for the Scottish Beltane Fire Festival that is still offered for this year, in part of his discussion, I had just arrived to Scotland in 2016, and I didn't have many friends. I was just looking around for a community on Facebook, and I found a meeting. I joined the community and became a part of it. And I think that's what Beltane is for me. It's a community that is open to everyone. A shared ritual, close quote, a shared ritual, meaning a merging of energies or a realigning of energies. And there are some other options from mabonhouse.com. As I read them, I wonder if any resonate with you. Because celebrating Beltane could include holding a bonfire for family and friends, taking action on a project that you've been working on, aligning energy with the cycle of the year. So setting that intention at Yule, nourishing it during Imbolc, and that initial action at Austera as everything's starting to be born and green and bloom, and then the full bloom now in Beltane. Where do you need to put a little extra energy in your cycle for this year? And while that's great on that individual level, I would also invite us to think about that as a community. Kind of started there, and Megan invited us there. This community has been in a season that feels to me, and I'd love to hear how it feels to you, as we've been in an Austera season. We've been in that blooming, emerging, creating season. As you're preparing to go into your summer and then come back into your next liturgical season, what feels right for the community? Returning to suggestions, setting aside and taking some care for ourselves. Decorating a tree with colorful ribbons that represent our wishes for the coming year. Making flower crowns. Dressing in green and walking a property that is special to us in gratitude, seeking a blessing for the upcoming year. And decorating in yellow flower wreaths, bouquets, or garlands. In conclusion, as we approach Beltane or May 1st, we can choose to celebrate spending some time in reflection in that cathedral of Unitarian Universalism, described by Reverend Forrest Church, receiving the intention to contemplate the beautiful stained glass window of paganism with the glowing light of the divine. We can celebrate many archetypical practices, from guiding our energy to simply dressing in green and enjoying flowers. We can enjoy the natural beauty around us and appreciate this time, this moment in the wheel of the year in gratitude for the reminder to live it now. It will not last. And beloveds, I think the most important part of Beltane is to engage our creativity and passions. What moves you, mind, body, and spirit in this holiday? What do you want to dedicate your energy to this summer to prepare for that coming autumn? I invite those questions, and I plan to sit with them myself. Whatever and however moves your spirit, beloveds. Happy Beltane. And we will be followed by our choir, gifting us with their song for What a Wonderful World.
Okay, the choir's prepared.